Greetings, my name is Kevin Matthews and I am the tax professor. I want to welcome you back to class. Class is still in session because the learning never stops. And we're going to talk a little bit today. We're going to talk about the topic of FATCA. FATCA stands for the Foreign Tax Compliance Act. It was actually an act that was passed, years ago, and more and more over time. Basically, what's happening is that more and more people are starting to feel the effects of it as they start getting into this, and so there's various requirements in order to be able to be compliant with FATCA. The majority of the time that here at Beta Solutions we tend to see FATCA issues, usually as an individual who's an American who's living overseas, and all of a sudden they're like, hey look, they go to their bank one day and their bank basically says, I need you to fill out this W-9. And the first thing they start saying is, what's a W-9? I don't even understand. Why are you asking me to fill this stuff out? And part of the reason for that is that FATCA has certain requirements on foreign institutions that wish to continue doing business here in the United States. And of course they don't want to lose that, so they're going to be compliant with this actual law. And so there's actually some withholding obligations that end up happening under FATCA, and so U.S. agents must withhold 30% on U.S. sources of determinable annual or periodic payments, what we call FDAP, such as dividends and interest paid to foreign financial institutions or non-financial foreign institutions. And generally where this really comes up for the majority of us in terms of a sort of a practical area is that what happens is you are asked to fill out a W-9 or a W-8 BEN. The W-8 BEN or the W-8 BENE are two forms that can generally be filed in order so that people know how much money that whether they have to withhold or not. And part of the reason why FATCA gets so complicated and so confusing is that there are many exceptions to the rule that FATCA doesn't always apply to. And the first one of which, of course, is basically that if you are a citizen of a country where there's a tax treaty. And so if there's a tax treaty involved, maybe you don't have any withholding requirements because it was addressed in the treaty itself. I think as we get more and more into the future and we start negotiating more and more of these treaties, I think that some of the countries that we have advanced relations with are going to start requesting that, hey look, we'll play ball so long as you get us out of FATCA. And I think that's probably what's going to end up happening in the long run, but again, it's a crystal ball. What happens. So, as Yoda says, always in motion is the future, so it can always change. Generally, a payment to a foreign financial institution is not subject to FATCA withholding if the foreign financial institution enters into an agreement with the IRS where it assumes specific due diligence and it is treated as a deemed compliant FFI or is subject to and complies with intergovernmental agreements. So, for example, if you're a foreign bank and you agree to be treated as a, you agree to certain requirements that the IRS puts out for you, what's going to end up happening is that they're going to say, okay, we'll let you play ball with us, and that's fine, and then that way you don't have to do any foreign withholdings. And so they really try to get these guys to kind of to comply, and so FATCA's got a lot of teeth to it, and that's probably one of the reasons why you're noticing if you live overseas that a lot of these banking institutions are really nervous about FATCA and not being compliant with it. Now, if a non-financial foreign institution is not subject to FATCA withholding if the NFEE is the beneficial owner of the payment and does not have any substantial U.S. owners or identifies as substantial U.S. owners to the withholding agent. Okay, so basically what happens is that they're saying, look, if I'm a foreign company, say I'm in, let me choose a company here. So a country, we'll say Honduras, because we don't have a tax treaty with Honduras. If I have a company in Honduras and there's a payment that is due to me And you know what they're basically saying is that, look, if you're a foreign country, if you're a foreign company and you have absolutely no connection here to the United States, and you're being paid those dividends, it's not going to be subject to that withholding, provided that you don't have, you don't have any 10% or more owners to the entity. And so what ends up happening is, in order to generally, in order to show this, they will have to fill out what's called a W8BENE. That's B Bravo Echo November dash E Echo. And then basically what ends up happening is you have to fill out these forms so that basically you can report those compliance. Yeah, so if you're a withholding agent that is required to withhold respect to payment does not withhold, is liable for the amount of tax not withheld and deposited. So say, for example, I've got a dividend payment that's going out that's subject to withholding of 30%, it's $10,000. I'm now liable for that $3,000 that I didn't withhold from you. So this law has some teeth to it, and it can actually cause a lot of headaches for those who are involved with foreign entities and don't follow these rules completely. Now, talking a little bit more about FATCA, how does FATCA-related earnings get reported to the individual who's going to be reporting these? And that's usually done on what's called a Form 1042. This is the foreign equivalent of the 1099. And one of the reasons why it's really, I say the equivalent, I mean, it does the exact same thing, but obviously it's got a lot more detailed information as a result to foreign people. But also, there's much more likelihood that a 1042 is going to have withholdings attached to it as opposed to a 1099 will. Okay, so certain obligations outstanding on July 1st, 14 are exempt from FATCA withholdings altogether. And so that can actually be a way that you may be able to get out of this. Guys, I'm going to tell you right now, and this is the skinny of it. If you have any FATCA related issues, you need to be working with somebody who has expertise in this area. I work in this area. I know I don't sound very normal that I normally do. I've got a bad head cold today, so unfortunately I've been suffering with that. But please feel free to reach out to us, and I'll be happy to answer anything. You leave a comment in the comment box below, or what you can do is go to my website at www.betasolutionscpa.com. Again, that's www.betasolutionscpa.com, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have relating to FATCA. You know, like I said, this is an area that we deal with a lot, and you know, we definitely, we get hired a lot in order to fill out those W8BENs, BENEs, and then we also have a lot of experience dealing with the 1042s, and our firm is actually one of the few that can actually prepare 1042s, whereas a lot of firms don't even bother learning the ropes with all that stuff. And so we work really hard to help clients in order to get that done. Again, my name is Kevin Matthews. Thank you very much for watching this video.